In this demo, we're going to be creating an application in Engine Awesome for a company we'll call Squeaky Clean. Squeaky Clean is a company that performs home cleanings, and so they have a number of different teams, each made up of different cleaners that go to houses multiple times a day for home cleanings. And so they want an application inside of Engine Awesome that lets them track their teams and their team members, schedule jobs with their upcoming clients, and potentially accept online payments. So in this video, we're going to go over first setting up our object types. So object types in Engine Awesome are how we store data. So you can kind of think of them like a custom post type if you're familiar with WordPress. Each kind of object type is its own collection of data that we can save. So for Squeaky Clean, we're going to have 4 object types. We're going to have teams, team members, clients, and finally jobs. So to get started, we're going to edit our teams object type. So this is the editor interface for setting up your object type. We have some information about the object type over here on the right. You can see we have our layouts that we'll get to in a later part of this video. But to get started, we're going to open up the inserter, and we're just going to make this very simple for our teams. The only thing we want to keep track of for our teams right now is the fact that they have a name. So we'll just call this field name, and we'll say that it's searchable, and we'll also say that it's required, and we'll hit save. We'll add this as a label field, and that's all we need to do for teams. Next, we're going to set up our team members object type. So our team members are a little bit more complicated. We're going to keep track of their name. We'll say this is their first name, and we'll say we specifically are collecting the first name. We'll grab another name field for the last name. We'll collect their email address. And we'll collect a photo. Lastly, each team member is associated with a team, so we'll add in a simple relationship. If we go into relationships, we can see has one team, has one client, or has one job. We'll say they have one team. We'll hit save. And we'll say that team members should be identified by their first name field and their last name field. Next, we're going to set up the clients object type. So the clients are all the customers of Squeaky Clean, and so there's a bit more data that we want to collect for them as well. So similarly, we're going to add in some name fields. We're also going to collect their contact information. We're going to collect 2 preferences. We want to know when our clients are more likely to want cleanings to be done. So we're going to break that down into the preferred time of day and their preferred time of week. So we're going to start with a drop-down field, and we'll say preferred time of day. And we'll give this a couple of options, and then we'll collect their preferred day of the week. Next, we want a field for clients to be able to give notes on what they want their cleaners to do when they come to their location. Maybe they always want to make sure that they start in a certain room or start on a certain floor, or maybe there's a certain item that is very high priority. So we'll call this a notes field, and we'll do this by adding in a text area field. And we'll call this notes from client. And then lastly, of course, we need to have information about their property. So we'll add in a address field, and we'll add in a photo field for their property. And we'll hit save. So now we're going to set up the jobs object type. So jobs are the way that we track each individual cleaning that happens for a contact or for a client. So each job will have a couple of different fields. We're going to start with a reference field that gives the business owner a quick way of referencing what job this is. We're also going to add in a status field. So we're going to say this is a radio field. And there are a couple of different states that we want to track for jobs. We want to check if a job has been scheduled. cleaning, if a job has been done, and finally, if payment has been collected. And then we're going to add in a couple of more relationships here. We're going to say that each job has a client that the job is being performed for, and each job has a team. Finally, we're going to insert a date field, and this is for when the job is being performed. It's the date and time. We'll save all our fields, and we'll say that this job is identified by the reference field, and that'll build our label. The next step is to start setting up our layouts. So we're going to start with the Teams layout. So I'm going to go ahead into Teams. And you'll see Engine Awesome has already created a collection view for us that shows all of the teams. But we want to create a layout for a single team. So I'm going to go ahead and create layout. And we'll call this team. So now we get to start adding fields using the inserter. So to start with, I'm going to add in a header field that is going to display the name of this team really up and large at the top of my view. The next, I really want to show a list of all the team members that are part of this team. So what I'm going to do this is I'm going to first insert a group block to group this stuff together. And we'll add in a little bit of text in here to say that these are the members of my team. And we'll make this very large, maybe like this. And then we're going to add in a new block called the subview block. So the subview block is how we display data from other different relationships. So if we remember, our team is made up of multiple different team members. So we're going to select that a team has many team members. And this is going to pop us into an editor that is containing all of the members in our team. So I'm going to remove the pagination for this use case. We're not going to need it. And we can see that Engine Awesome has already provided the first name and the last name fields for me. I'm going to add in one more. I want to add in the email field. And then what I'm also going to do is I want to collect and show the team member's photo. So I can easily see, for those of us who are, better with faces than names. So I'm going to grab these three together and I'm going to put them into their own group. And then we're going to create another group block here. So before this group, we can insert in the image field. So we're going to say insert before, and we'll add in the photo. So let's make this group block a row. And let's also evenly space these out, why don't we? And we can align their data to the top. Actually, instead of evenly spacing this, I think we just want to make our photo a bit smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. We'll make it 25% width, and we'll hit save. The next thing that I want to do is I want to make it clear what the different team members are. So I'm going to take this query item template, and I'm going to go into the row block that we have, and I'm going to give this a background so it can stand out a little bit. So we'll choose this kind of, let's use this background. And we'll assign some padding so things look a little bit better. And we can give this a border as well. So we'll say enable the border tool. And we'll select that darker color there and make it 1 pixel. Okay, I think that's looking good. So I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to head back out to my main view again. And so we can see that we now have our members. And we'll have each member being displayed in a list here. I'm going to take this group block, and I also want to make it a little bit, have it stand out from the page a bit. So I'm going to give it a background. We'll give it a background of white. We'll also add in some padding, and we can give this a border as well. Okay. The next thing I want to add is the list of jobs so that when I go to the team page, I can easily see the list of jobs that they have coming up and create a new one. So again, I'm going to do this by creating a new group block. And inside this group, we're going to give it a subview again. But this time, instead of saying that a team has many team members, we'll say a team has many jobs. And we'll hit select. And so this is a layout that is used pretty often with Engine Awesome. But we also have some more powerful layout tools as well. So instead of using this query item template, we're going to add in a list table. So we can scroll down to the list table block. And we can select the fields that we want to include. So we'll select the reference field. We'll also say that we want to show the status that's available. Let's say the client and the date that we want to display. We'll give this a white background color so it stands out a little bit. And we'll also give this a border as well. Say this one. I'm going to take this pagination and I'm actually going to move it ahead of my list table in this case. And what I also want to have alongside the pagination is a quick button that lets me schedule a new job. So I'm going to put this into a group. And in this group block, I'm going to insert a new block here called go to new object. And so we'll call this schedule job. And it's going to create a new job for us automatically. And we can see that in action a little bit later. So I'm going to select this group block. We're going to position this as a row. Let's actually make the go to new object block a little bit first. And we can actually group these ourselves. We can give this a nice little section title like we did our team members. So I'm going to grab these two together. We'll put this in a row block. And before this row block, we'll insert some text. And we'll call this jobs. Whoops. Let's move it over here. Make it large. And we'll space these between. Okay, so let's go back to our layout again. And let's also give this its own kind of standout treatment as well. So I'm going to give this group the same kind of styling that I used before. I'm going to give this a white background, some padding, and a nice border. And hit save. So now our teams have a name of the team up front, their list of members, and their list of jobs. Okay, now that we've created a layout for our teams, let's create a layout for each individual team member. Again, we're going to hop into Edit Object Type, and we're going to create a new layout. We'll call this one Team Members. And so here we're just going to add in the different fields that we want to collect. So we're going to start off with their photo. We're going to add in a header field, which we'll use to display their first name and their last name. Then we're going to show their email address. And finally, a place to select the team they're assigned to. Let's group these things together so they look a little bit nicer. We're going to group these three into their own group block. And then we're going to put these into a row with each other. And now we can take the image field and make it take less space. And in this case, we kind of know what the image is here. It's a bit self-explanatory, so we're going to hide the label. And finally, we're going to line the things all up at the top. And now here's our simple team member layout. Let's create a layout for our clients. We're going to create a new layout. We'll call it Client. And we're going to start off with that header field again. And we're going to display their first name and their last name. And then we have some more fields that we want to display. I'm going to show their email address, their cell phone number, and their address. Next, I want to display a photo of their property. And now let's work on getting these all laid out together. So I'm going to do another kind of two-column-ish layout again. So I'm going to select our email, cell, and address fields, and we're going to group them all together. And we're going to combine this with our photo field to get ourselves a kind of two-column layout. Let's position this label, let's say, at the bottom. I think that'll look a little bit nicer in this case. And let's also align our text up at the top. And hit save. Next, I want a section for the client's preferences. So I'm going to add in a new group block. And we'll start off with some text and say this is their preferences. We'll make this text nice and large, but not as large as their name. And then after it, we can add in some more fields. So we're going to add in a row block that will contain their preferred time of day and their preferred day of the week. Lastly, let's add in a big section for the notes from the client. Finally, I want to take this group block and apply some styling to it. I'm going to give this one a white background, some padding, and a nice border. Next, I want to display a list of jobs that this client has, both the ones that are upcoming and all the ones that have been scheduled in the past, as well as a convenient button to create a new job. So this is again done using a subview. So we're going to create a group block to house this in, and then we're going to add in a subview block. We're going to choose the client has many jobs relationship and hit select. And so again, this brings us into a view now where we can focus on setting up our list of jobs. In this case, again, I don't want to use the object query item template. Instead, I'm going to use a list table. So I'm going to go in here, select list table, and let's select the fields that we want to display. We want to include the reference, perhaps the status, the assigned team, and we don't need the client here like we had before. So let's go for the date. I'm going to take this list table and move it. Let's actually have it after the pagination again this time. Let's give it some background color and a border. That's looking good. Again, we want to give a quick way to create a new item for this client. So let's group this together so we can add in our add new item. Again, we're going to call this schedule job. And we'll put these together in a row. And we can have the schedule job appear beforehand. And then finally, I think we need some text here that shows what the label of this section is going to be. So we're going to go to this row block. We're going to group it and add in some text. We'll call this jobs. Make it nice and large, but not the largest. Turn this into a row. We can take our jobs, move it on to the left, and space these between so we get our pagination actions on the right and our labels on the left. And we'll hit save. We can go back to our main view. And I think this would also look great with a kind of nice background. So let's add in a white background to the entire container, some padding of its own, and a border. And now we have our simple client view. It's time for the biggest one of them all, our jobs layout. So we're going to create a new layout for a single job. And let's get started adding the information we want to see. Again, we're going to start in a familiar place with our header field. And we'll display the reference up top in large text. Next, we have some status information that I want to display. So I'm going to put this all into a group. But let's get started with the date field, the team that this is assigned to, the client this job is for, and then finally the status. So I'm going to put all of these into a group. But I want to give a little bit of separation here. So I'm going to take this status field and we're going to leave it to itself. But we're going to group the team, the client, and the date all together. So I'm going to make this wide width. And I'm going to give it its own background. Let's say this color. And we'll give it some padding. And how about in this time, instead of using a actual border, let's just use a border radius. We'll say a border radius of 2 pixels. Maybe we can make it a little bit more. We'll say 4 pixels. Yeah, I like how that looks. On our job page, we want to have some information from different places. This is the view that each team member, the team lead, is going to be viewing when they start a job. So we're going to want to include some information from the actual client, like their address and their photo, so they know they're in the right place. So we're going to get started again with a group block. And we're going to add another subview. And we'll say that jobs have one client. And so now we can include the information from the client that we want to display. So we'll pull out the first name and last name for now. That's not really what we need here. Instead, I'm going to add in the address field as well as the property photo. And we'll group these two together like that. Hit save, and we can go back to our view. Next, I want to include the contact information and some of their preferences. So I'm going to add in another group and another subview. So we can have multiple subviews for the same relationship in the same layout. So in this one, instead of the first name and last name again, we're going to add in the notes from the client, as well as their contact information. We're going to put these two fields into a group, and we'll give it the same kind of white background that we've been doing, some padding, and a border. And we're going to do the same thing for the notes from the client. We're going to put it into a group, give it a background, some padding, and a border. Okay, let's hit save. And you can see here, we get some quick buttons here. If we wanted to, we could, for instance, remove these actions. But I think all of these are quick actions that we want to have on our layout. So it makes sense to keep them here. So let's go back. Next, I want to put this into a 2-column layout again. So I'm going to take these 2 rows, put them all into their own row block. We're going to use the evenly spaced version. We're going to add the space between the 2 items, and we'll make this one stretch wide. Again, let's align our text up to the top and hit save. Looking at this, I think it would be a great idea to add some background for this as well. So we can go ahead and do that. We're going to go into our subview, select our fields, put them into a group block, give a nice background, some padding, and a border. Okay, that looks great. The next thing that I want to do is I want to show the preferences that each client has for when their jobs should be scheduled. That way, when the business owner sets up the schedule for the week, they can easily say, okay, here's the best date and time that we can schedule a job for this client. Now, this is information that isn't really helpful once the job's already been scheduled or is in cleaning, is finished, or has been completely paid. So we want a way to hide that information. There are a couple of different ways that you can do this in Engine Awesome, but I'm going to show how you can do this using layout visibility. So this is our original layout here. Instead of making this the default layout, I'm going to say that this is the layout that should be displayed if the cleaning status is scheduled, cleaning, done, or paid. Actually, we'll just make it it's cleaning, done, or paid. I think it would be helpful to show the client's preferences when the job is still in the scheduled status. So we'll give that an unchecked and we'll hit save. Next, what we can do is we can hop into the Tools menu to duplicate this entire layout. So now we're editing a layout that is a duplicate of the one that we had before. So we're going to say this is the new job view, and we'll mark this one as the default layout. Next, we're going to add in a card for that information. I'm going to make this another subview, And again, we're going to select the jobs have one client relationship and hit select. We're going to pull out these fields, and instead we're going to add in the preferences fields. So we'll say their preferred date of time and their preferred day of the week. Let's group these two together and then put it in its own group so we can give it a little bit of layout. We're going to give it a white background, some padding, and a border. Next, I want to make it really clear what these fields are. So I'm adding a text field, and we'll call this scheduling preferences. Make this large text, and we'll put it above our text. And so now we have our scheduling preferences sectioned out. We've created our layouts for our client, our job, our team members, and our teams. Now, if you remember, in the beginning, Engine Awesome automatically created us those list layouts for us. But now that we've gone through and we've built up more of our application, let's take a look at those to see what we can customize about them. I'm going to start off with jobs. And I'm going to see the jobs layout that was automatically created for me by Engine Awesome. So you can see this is a pretty straightforward layout. It has the title, a button to create a new entry, a list table of jobs, and some pagination. But let's display some more fields here. I want to include the date of the job, the status, the client, and the team. And I'll hit save. Another cool feature that Engine Awesome has is filters. So I want to add an easy button so that I can find the jobs that are all happening today, this week, or sometime in the future. So I'm going to go into the block consider. I'm going to find the new query filters item. We'll put this before our list table. And we'll insert the query filter date and select our date field. And so now we have a nice little filter that'll let us filter the jobs by a certain date. I'm going to apply some styles to it. We'll give this a nice background, some padding, and again, a nice little border. And hit save. So for the client's layout, I'm going to also want to add a couple of fields. We're going to include their email, and I think that's it. For team members, let's add the team that they've been assigned to. And for teams, I don't think we need anything else. So now that we've created our application, let's take a look at how it works in action. So we're going to start by creating our teams. So we'll create one team for now. We'll call this our Gemini team. And hit save. So you can see this is our layout that we had before. We have our members, which we don't have any yet, and we have our jobs. So let's go ahead and create some team members. We'll make a team member, let's say, called Carl. We'll give Carl a photo. And we'll assign him to the Gemini team. Let's add another team member. And we can hit save. Now if we go back to our teams page, we can see the two team members that we've added. And now we have our list of jobs. Before we create a job, let's create a client. We'll add in an address. We'll select our preferences. And we'll add in some notes. Finally, we'll upload a file. And we'll hit save. And so now we have our client. Now, when the business owner is ready to schedule a job, all they have to do is click the Schedule Job button. Engine Awesome has determined that we're creating a new job for Timothy Jacobs. We'll give this a reference. We'll say cleaning for Timothy on January 27th. We'll assign this to our Gemini team. We can see that their preferred time is Friday afternoon, so we'll select that. We have their contact information that we confirm we have everything. All their photo and address looks good, so we'll mark this as scheduled, and we'll hit save. Now that our cleaning job has been created, we can head on back to the jobs page, and we can see our list of jobs. You can imagine when a cleaning person comes in, they could hop on over to the filter here, select all the jobs that they need to say, let's say, this week, and our list will be updated with the list of jobs that are coming up. And if they want, they can grab in more details, click on over to the client or to the team. We can imagine that the cleaning company would come in. They would say, hey, we've started our cleaning. When they hit save, our scheduling preferences will go away. And we can imagine this could kick off some emails that are sent to the client that say, hey, we're in the process of cleaning. Just letting you know we've started. The cleaning company can then transition this into the done status. And then finally, when they've collected payment, let's say a check was mailed, the business owner can come in and they can mark this job as paid. Let's see how easy it is to modify it. So we have our jobs, but something we really want to do is to be able to capture a simple feedback rating from the client on how well they think the cleaning had went that day. So to do this, I'm going to add in a new field. We'll make this a drop-down field, and we'll call it client rating. And we'll just give it some simple options, just to scale from 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And hit save. Now we can add this to our layout. So I'm going to head on over to our job layout. Now let's add a place in our layout to collect this information from our client. So we're going to add to this column a new group. And in here, we'll include the client rating. Let's again give this a background of white, some padding, and a nice border. And here's how we can use those other visibility features that Engine Awesome provides. In visibility here, I'm going to enable visibility for this group and say that I only want to show the client rating if the job is done or is paid. And I'll hit save. Now when I go back to my application, we can hop into our cleaning. And when we hit edit, we can see that there's a space for the client rating. And we'll say they did a great job and mark this as 5 stars. Now if I go over to Timothy Jacobs as my client and schedule a new job, we can see that that field doesn't show up yet. So again, we'll add in a date, select a team, and we'll mark this as scheduled, and we'll hit save. You can see we have our scheduling preferences, but we don't have that conditional field yet. when the cleaners come in to move it to cleaning, our layout updates, and as they transition into done, they'll see a slot for the client rating, and they can collect it right there at the door and say, hey, 5 stars. If we wanted to, we could also add this into all of our different layouts. We could add this to our table here. We can add it on the list of jobs for a client. Anywhere we want to show that information, we can. So thanks for taking the time with me to learn how to build this squeaky clean application on Engine Awesome. I hope you can see how powerful a tool this is that doesn't require you to know how to write any code or be a developer, but you can still build powerful applications. And I hope you can see how Engine Awesome can help businesses move better and faster. Thanks.